Kia ora and welcome to the horniest season of the worst idea of all time on record. I'm Guy Montgomery. I'm joined by my esteemed and potentially aroused associate, Tim Batt.
Nope.
No, he's neither esteemed nor aroused. We have just watched Emmanuelle, The Art of Love, independently but simultaneously, separated by health protocols and suburbs, but not by our media consumption. Now, you might remember in the previous episode of The Worst Idea of All Time, we watched a film that was originally recorded in English, overdubbed in Russian or German, but the sync played in almost perfect synchronicity with the English underneath it. In what
Almost being the operative word.
Yeah, truly one of the most challenging oral experiences I've had while watching a film. This time, mercifully, they have removed all of the English. So we just watched Emmanuelle exclusively in German.
Yeah. I feel like I can speak German now, which I know academically isn't true, but I feel it in my bones.
Certainly bits of German I picked up. For example, did you know that oh baby is the same in German as it is in English? The colloquial use of baby as an affectionate term for a spouse or partner, that transcends the language barrier.
I didn't know that till watching Emmanuelle and the Art of Love from the Emmanuelle 2000 series, but now I do. I also know that occasionally when you're German and you're speaking only in German, every now and then you will say, kiss me, as in, oh baby Marco, kiss me.
Yes, there is another German-English, was it Adam Sandler? He was in the Spanglish movie? Am I remembering that correctly?
Famed linguist, Adam Sandler.
That's right.
And his co-star, Selma Hayek, in that one?
Do you know what? I've always thought it was Selma Hayek, but I have a suspicion that it was just a lookalike.
Really?
This is what I think, but I think it's someone famous.
I think it's a pretty famous.
Paz Vega. Paz Vega.
Okay.
You know Paz Vega. Anyway,
when you can't get Selma, you get Paz.
I was searching for a word that articulates the German-English sort of hybrid, as Spanglish does Spanish and English. German-English, German. I mean, nothing's gonna
gross.
Really gonna hit. Well, in German's not bad for a porn film then. But my favorite part of German, the German language, is when they say, what is that in German? It is just, was ist das? It's sort of, I know that German probably predates or is on equal footing in terms of timing with English. Yeah. But my ignorant understanding of that is they were like, well, we kind of like the rhythm of what is that, but we wanted to have a little German tang.
Was ist das?
It's
fun to say, isn't it?
It's just perfect. But yeah, I mean, what we just watched was, I think, as you correctly speculated early on, Tim, a TV edit.
Now, here's the fucked up thing about that. The Germans, known for being a filthy people who love porn, but for some reason in this, I'm assuming, German TV edit, they've cut out like 80% of the sex scenes, I'm guessing. Because you can tell where the sex scenes kick off, and then there's a very awkward cut, and then we're back to no sex.
It's honestly, it was almost merciful. Like, it really highlights just how much of the time when you're watching porn is taken up by the sex scenes. Namely, a third of it.
Yeah, like exactly a third, because this clocked in at, I think, 57-minute running time, and normally they're 90.
And I was not wanting for silhouettes of penis or, tasteful shots of hided mound. I was very grateful for all the nudity I came across.
There's the thing, right? Because they still had, we had some female breasts. We had kind of like the same amount of anatomy that we've had in the other Emmanuelle films, but just less pained, languid sex scenes where we've got to cover the genitals of everyone.
They really tightened it. And look, I know this is quite early in the show to introduce this segment, Tim, but I've got to get the boner inspector in here.
I actually was thinking we should introduce the episode with him in. So I forgot to do it at the start. Please open the door. Get him in here. Get him in here.
Boner Inspector!
Hello, sir. Guten Tag. Guten Morgen.
Ah, ja, guten Tag. I see you've been watching my one of my German experiments.
Yeah.
Well, no, please.
No boner. Sorry, I don't want to jump the gun here. No, but there simply wasn't an opportunity. I was too enthralled in the story of some Thomas Crown-esque art heist film with just a hint of female nipple strewn about the place.
Wow.
But there wasn't enough sustained erotic content to get my humours rising. How about you, Guy?
I would love to talk to the Boner Inspector about a situation or segment I would either call, and this is your call, Tim, and the Boner Inspectors, either Turgid Time or Boner on the Offbeat.
Okay. Boner on the Offbeat, please.
So there's a scene, they go back to an apartment. There's the man and the woman, Marco and a blonde woman who looks a little bit like Al McPherson.
Zoe.
Oh, yeah. And they go back to the apartment, and Emmanuelle she's done to them in some way, and she's there. And then another guy who looks like a carbon copy of Marco, like his brother, shows up.
Paolo.
Yeah. Was that his name?
His name's Paolo. I'm pretty sure it's that guy.
Anyway, when the brothers were saying hello to each other, and this is why it's called Boner on the Offbeat, or Turgid Time. Not full-blown boner, but the closest I've come to having an erection in the entirety of the Emmanuelle series, in a way that I observed in my body and outside of myself, and I said, oh, this is a familiar feeling. What's this doing here? Was that scene. And then, before it could even reach its final form, it dissipated. But, I mean, it's not nothing. It's something tell the Boner Inspector.
I would like to drill down on which scene this was, as no one drilled down within the scene because this was a sex-free edit. But was this when the couple that wasn't Emmanuelle, they had sex and then Emmanuelle walked in and then the guy from the other couple proposed on the spot?
Well, before we get into this, we just need to both make sure we're clear that Emmanuelle is she's the blonde, the non-Al McPherson lookalike, the blonde woman.
Dude, I'm so sure we both can lock into which one she was. A lot of people talked to her and called her by her name.
So, but the scene the way I saw it was the non-Emmanuelle couple, them and Emmanuelle. There's no sex happening at all. They all just go back to the apartment in San Francisco. They're all in the apartment. They're all standing around, hanging out, catching up, talking about whatever it is German people talk about. And then this guy comes over, Paolo, and he knocks on the door, and he enters the room.
Yeah.
And that's when I noticed that I was entering Turgid Time, or having a boner on the offbeat. And then the friends familiarize each other, and then the non-Emmanuelle and Paolo couple, they leave, as does my boner. And then Emmanuelle and Paolo have some sort of tryst, some sort of erotic moment. And then the non-Emmanuelle couple come home with champagne, and Emmanuelle and Paolo are still naked, and it's all super relaxed. And I kind of admire the freedom with which they're living their lives.
Very German.
Marco proposes to Al McPherson, and she says yes. And this is arousing to all parties.
But
I
really thought it was crazy to me that did not turn into a foursome.
I know. I couldn't agree more. I thought that was what we had to look forward to. I was disappointed it didn't. But, I mean, by this point, I'd already had, a boner drift in and out the door. And so to the boner inspector, I say, thank you for your consistency in showing up. It is a pleasure to have something to report to you. I'm sorry it wasn't, like in New Zealand, we have this is probably international maritime law everywhere, but if you catch a fish, different fish have to meet different measurements to be qualified as keepers. And if you were to measure my boner against the keeper measurement, I don't think it would have been a legal boner. You'd have to throw it back into the ocean to grow into its full self.
This was an undersized boner.
If the boner inspector has been fishing for however many weeks without any bites, you got to admire the stick-to-itiveness of the boner inspector, and you've also got to say, hey, guess what? There are some fish down there. Keep dropping that line, brother.
Well, it's very good to get a bite every now and then just to justify being on the water, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, but, you can have a lovely time on the water. I think this analogy you might have, Lex. You can have a lovely time on the water without going fishing.
Well, I guess that's what we're doing in a way, isn't it?
Yes.
We're just getting out on the water every week. And there's been no big bites so far.
And you tell your friends, you go, oh, Tu and I were out on the boat again last week. They go, did you catch any fish? You go, oh, no, we're not fishing.
We are fishing in a way. We're fishing for erections. I want to try and figure out what this film was about with you guys, piece it together. Here's what I've got. San Francisco, that's where we are, I believe.
There's no denying
the movie opens with a pretty straightforward plot, which is that there's an art heist going on.
Right.
So a guy comes in and swaps a painting over, which is quite visibly a child's painting, both times, and done on like a piece of cardboard that he takes out of a frame, which is not glassed over or secured in any way, shape, or form.
You say that, but fine artists, once they've refined their technique and have displayed a technical prowess, it sort of unlocks the ability to then engage with art however they so choose. And so a painting that you see could have been done by a child.
Yes.
This is, in fact, high art.
I see. That's my bad.
Are you one of the people who goes into an art gallery and you see like a Jackson Pollock and you say, I could do that?
Not a Jackson Pollock, specifically. I've seen examples of like solid color that's been painted on a panel, and I'm like, I don't know if this should be here. This one, I don't know. In fact, I'm going to say it shouldn't, because I think just a block of solid color it's not really, what's it doing?
Where do you think it should be? What's a more appropriate place for it?
Put it at home. If you want to make it, far be it for me to stop you, but maybe put that one at home. It doesn't need to.
Less than the
take up
artist,
wall
you question
space.
the judgment of the curator.
I guess that's what I'm saying, yeah. Artists can do whatever they want. Big believer in that. Art galleries have a duty to the audience. Can't just go whacking up a huge frame that's one solid painted colour, You're kind of wasting my time. Do I go to the art gallery every day? No, I don't. I don't get there very often. So when I get there, I want a little. I want something good, something special.
What is wrong? Like, I think some of the most striking art you could see is just one specifically chosen block color painted with a variety of intensity of brush strokes on the canvas.
And I guess that's why you're wrong, isn't it? Because you think that is something that deserves to be in an art gallery. So it's interesting.
I think anything could deserve to be in an art gallery.
Isn't it interesting how we're different like that, guy, and that you sometimes are wrong? And so are the art curators, to their credit as well. So I guess you've got that in common. So maybe you could be an art curator at a gallery.
That's right, Tim. It's not you, it's everyone else who is the problem.
100%. I've always said that, which means it's definitely true. It also kind of depends how big it is, to be honest. Because it's like, if it's really big, I would almost be, I would be tricked into thinking it was justified.
That is such a classic confidence trick. It's just like doing something on a massive scale, and then everyone goes, oh, yeah.
Well, that's a big one of those.
How'd you find a big enough canvas and enough paint?
Exactly. So there's an art heist. Anyway, it kind of looked like someone had sat on a photocopier with their butt and taken a photocopy. That's what it was. Two spheres.
It was two like peach-colored ovals, not quite touching,
buttocks.
but very close to each other. On I can't remember what color, but a fairly plain background, and it was a simple painting, but I could see why it was desired.
That got swapped out for reasons that I couldn't quite ascertain because my German is rusty. But then Emmanuelle seemed to intervene on the situation, and I'm delighted to report to our listening audience that the shitty $2 shop jewellery is back, which leads me to believe it is the centerpiece of Emmanuelle 2000. The central device that ties all of these movies together, both in a literal sense and in a plot device sense, is something that I think I have seen at $2 shops my entire life.
It's undeniably the binding agent for this series. Emmanuelle has a sort of headband / tiara with a plastic heart on the front of it, and when she puts it on, if by chance someone is wearing the matching plastic silver necklace, she can exercise mind control over that person. We don't know why. We don't know necessarily to what end.
Actually, I learned another German word that's similar to the English, and that is amulet.
Ah.
That was said a couple of times. And I like that they were calling it an amulet as well.
What is an amulet?
Amulet, as I would say. An amulet is like a piece of jewellery that, well, the way I know it, it has magical properties to it. So it's usually in a necklace, I think. And it's like a physical object that's imbued with some magic.
Oh, wow.
Like protective amulets.
Hermione Granger has that time turner.
Oh, I'm not a Harry Potter guy.
Is that an amulet? It's a necklace that you can sort of fuck around with the fabric of time using it. That's an amulet.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't read the books.
Yeah, well, they're having a huge resurgence at the moment as everyone rallies around J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I heard she's back in everyone's good graces.
Yeah, she just can't help herself. Every time she opens her mouth, the public love her more.
Good for her. What I kind of was taken aback by was there's one scene, despite the fact that a lot of the sex scenes got edited out. And as I mentioned, I don't feel like we missed a lot through that because we still saw some semi-naked people. You don't see full penetrative sex in any of these movies anyway. But there was like dry humping depicted as real sex. So it was kind of like the thing that I think they're doing in some of the other movies and some of the other scenes, but they're just like shooting around it, and that, you know, below the waist maybe some of the actors are wearing something. But in this it was like the characters had jeans on and a dress, but they were like dry humping to completion against a wall.
I think that's really cool, and maybe go somewhere to explain why I thought dry humping was such a hot option as a teen. I mean, as an adult, I look at dry humping and I think, sure, it's a great place to get started. It's like rubbing a couple of sticks together, but you know.
I think it needs a rebrand. Dry humping is a horrible turn of phrase. Both words are quite bad.
Does it not capture exact? Like I imagine, sort of denim on denim, and I can actually almost hear the jeans rubbing against one another. I think it captures the essence of what is happening so perfectly. A name change would be insanity.
But it isn't very positive. Like I feel like we could make it more sexy with a name change.
Well, who are you working for? The fucking Christians?
Yeah, maybe I am, man. I'm working for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, a noted fan of dry humping.
That's right. He was big into that. He's like, he always say it doesn't count if it's dry.
Yeah,
because he was big on all that whether or not it counts stuff. Isn't that such a funny like framework to look at sex and sexuality through? It's like you just create these arbitrary distinctions of whether or not what you're doing counts as sinning or cheating or whatever the context is. But it's like, no, this doesn't count.
Are you talking about anal? Are you referencing every 90s stand-up comedian and talking about anal sex?
I was not thinking of anal. I was thinking of like Jesus.
Well, I was thinking about anal.
Well, yeah, anal is it is a vintage example, right? Because it's the line that all these people would wheel out. They'd say, "Well, I'm still pure in God's eyes."
Because anal.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking like I'm imagining Jesus being like trying to sort of he does something and then he tries to explain to everyone why it's okay, and he's like, "No, because it's flesh on flesh is the problem. But if I hump Mary through this cassock, we're good.
I don't know if Jesus really... I feel like this is maybe something we've given Jesus. I don't know if Jesus was known for being a big advocate and proponent of dry humping. Though I could have that wrong. I haven't... You're probably more religiously educated than I. So what's the skinny guy? Was JC
a lot of the Bible is dry humping. And that is honestly what turns a lot of people off from the church. Is they're like, I cannot tolerate feeling this pent up any longer. Like, is this guy going to get it out and get it on? Or am I just going to keep reading about him getting fucking cockburn from rubbing his penis up against his hemp cassock?
What are the horny religions? Are there any real horny ones? Did Jehovah's Witnesses have multiple wives, or is that someone else?
That's Mormon fundamentalists. But that situation is not very horny. It's kind of more entrapment style stuff. That is
it seems like subjugation more than horny.
Your baseline Mormons, from what I understand, very happy, sort of largely contented people. Mormon fundamentalists who are following a more extreme sect of the religion, no.
Yeah, Mormonism's an interesting one because they founded themselves real late in the piece, like way further than you would think it would be possible to found a religion and have it take off.
But do you know what else they did? They got it off the ground, and
they did. They really did.
Respect.
Yeah, they got it off the ground. Well done.
I would love to talk to you, Tim, about the music of this movie, because I think this had one of the most banging soundtracks since our early doors Emmanuelle's, and also one of the most of its time soundtracks.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I looked up the guy who did the music. I've forgotten his name. I think it's Marco. It starts with a C. Oh, damn.
Did this guy do all the music? Because we covered at least 2 genres.
No, I think the sense that I got is that he was doing like the original compositions for it. But I'm actually going to find his name because, listen, I'll have to admit to you guys, while the movie was on, I drifted slightly and had a little look at this guy's Wikipedia page. And he was a famous disco drummer and then went on to like produce a lot of music, he was like famed for putting on a lot of shows.
This makes sense because the soundtrack choices that weren't original score sounded like actual songs of the time. You sort of had that like early 2000s techno house style track. After my turgid time moment had passed, it sort of there was the sex scene between Emmanuelle and Paolo was scored to like this song that had the refrain "I'm not sleeping tonight," and it was sort of like up and a bit housey, and it was matched perfectly with a lot of these sort of panning cuts of these two having sex with very inaccurate sort of approximations of how genitals might align with each other or how mouth and genitals might align, but the general tone felt very of its time, and it really helped the scene whip along and soar.
It's like some dawn of French house stuff going on, eh? 'Cause it's got that disco groove. Cerrone is his name. That's his like performing name. His full name is Jean-Marc Cerrone, and he's still knocking around to this very day. An influential producer of 70s and 80s disco songs. Over 30 million album sales, would you believe, Guy, including over 4 million in France alone. And I think
what's his most famous song?
Apparently, Love in C minor. Cerrone's Paradise, Supernatural. In 1991, he played on the show Harmony to celebrate the launch of Japan's first high-definition TV satellite. 1991. Imagine that.
I remember when Japan launched that high-definition TV satellite. I said,
were you involved?
It's not going to work. I said, it's not going to work. You got Cerrone over here for nothing. This is going to be humiliating. And boy, was I wrong. And that's when I learned.
Wait, what is this? The rock opera was played. This is just a continuation of what is the rock? I guess he wrote a rock opera at some point. Was played to over 800,000 spectators at Tokyo Harbor. Cerrone adapted Harmony for theater in 1992. The musical Dreamtime, which was based on an original story by Cerrone, ran for 140 shows on Broadway at the Ed Sullivan Theater.
Hey,
famous for hosting
tonight, the late night show.
Is it still there? Like, do
I
they
think
still
so.
do it in there?
I saw a
know they
Letterman
did for
taping
Letterman.
there when he had Seth Rogen on.
It was very cold in there, right? You told me that, right? That they'd make it real cold?
I might have. I don't remember it being cold. I mean, I barely remember the details of the show. I always envy people who are like, I was here at this time and I remember all of these details. And I feel like
man.
I remember how I felt at obscure times from memories I did not choose to remember. Things that stay with me, I have no idea what's going to stay with me.
Yeah. I mean, I just watched this movie, and I know I just told you that I, like, drifted onto Cerrone Wikipedia territory, but I really did make an effort to pay attention. I've forgotten most of the film. I don't know what the fuck was going on.
Well,
the fact that it was all in German didn't help, but I still should remember more of it than I did.
I'll walk you through a few other bits and bobs, Tim, because I also, like, this movie had more twists and turns than a frickin' Hydra slide. And certainly my mental health and relationship to not just this film, but the entirety of the Emmanuelle franchise and what we're doing, they were right there on the goddamn, they were on the slide with it. Like, I was sort of just, as soon as they started talking in German and I went to see if there was an alternative audio track or perhaps some subtitles and there weren't, I thought, okay. I mean, it's like, how are we here for a start? Which is...
You sent me one word, Guy. We kicked off the movie. You sent me one word on Messenger, and that word was German.
That's right. And I was like, what? Like, how am I watching... how am I watching 2000s US softcore made-for-TV pornos in German? What decision, like, you never know what decisions are going to lead to what in your life. And it's, life is just a series of small decisions that don't feel significant in the moment, stacked on top of each other until you're looking down at every decision that's led you to this point and you're thinking, I didn't realize that any of these were going to land me here. I had no idea that this was going to lead to this, was going to lead to this, and on and on and on and on. And so here I was looking at all the decisions that led me to being in this house at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, watching Emmanuelle, for the love of art or whatever the fuck it's called, exclusively in German with nearly all of the sex scenes cut out. But I thought, who have I wronged? What have I done? But I took solace knowing that my friend Tim was doing exactly the same thing. And then I thought, well, Tim has also made a series of decisions which has landed him in this position. What are we doing here? And then I sort of got into the movie and I quite enjoyed that it was in German. And I thought the soundtrack was good and all these other things. But, as the movie went, so too did my journey with, how I felt about myself, how I felt about this project, what the future holds. And by the end of it, I actually was in a pretty good mood. And I sort of was like, well, that was fairly painless. Like, this is a part of my life, but it's not my legacy, is it? This isn't the only thing I've done or will do. Although when I'm inside of it feels like it is.
Okay, so this is good because isn't that so motivating to think I can't let this be the major thing that I leave behind or am remembered for or am known for? So then you've got to beat your own record.
Well, Tim, if this is how we're framing it, there are two ways to do this. One of them is to work harder outside of this and achieve some form of personal, professional, like some fundamental element of philanthropic success or accomplishment that outstrips whatever this is. And the other one is to stop doing this. I mean, is another way to outgrow this is to not watch any more porn.
I genuinely think this consideration represents the two hosts of this podcast because my approach will always be to stack more things on top of a precarious pile of things. And I think you're a bit more wise and you're like, well, maybe we should take some things off this pile which is about to fall over. And I will always say, absolutely not.
It just needs another thing on top to counterbalance the other weight.
100%.
I mean,
do you feel that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so. But then, because I was thinking about it, I was thinking about, like, all of this stuff was swirling around, and then I was thinking about, because I was thinking about bringing this up in conversation with you, and then I was also thinking about, like, times when you've been furious at me. And when I, in those moments, have had this steadfast belief, I'm like, no, we must move forward. This is a part of the process, this is what it is. And then I was like, is that true now? And I mean, by and large, I do think that respective approaches, you'll say, no, you just got to keep going and put another thing on. And I'll be like, I mean, how do we outgrow this legacy?
First of all, I want to revisit something. Are you furious at me?
No, I'm not.
To do with the fact that we're watching pornography.
No, I'm not. I'm not furious at you, but I was thinking like I feel lost and uncertain, and I was like, well, I know that Tim has felt this before, and then the most recent example I had of you articulating a version of that was when we were doing the Rob Schneider series, and you were just, and understandably too, but you were getting so cross.
It's because you kept explaining what the title meant to me.
What was the title?
You take the opportunity to do again now. Asian Mama, Mexican Kids by Rob Schneider.
And why was it called that?
I think it's because his mother is Filipino and his children are Mexican.
But if his mum's Filipino, how are his children Mexican?
Because he has a Mexican wife and mother to his children.
The truth shall set you free. And with that, Tim, I will endeavour to never explain the title of Rob Schneider's special again.
Because I've proved that I get it?
Yeah.
That took a really long time. It took what feels like almost a year. In fact, it might be almost a year for me to understand. A real milestone we've hit. So I guess is your question like, are we doing the right thing? That's the vibe I'm getting from you.
No,
by persisting with this.
It's not, are we doing the right thing? But it's just like, some days you turn the movie on and it makes perfect sense.
Some days you're watching the porno.
Sometimes the porno's watching you. And yeah, it was just one of those days where it didn't make a lot of sense to me. And even within that and that uncertainty, I managed to enjoy myself. I mean, hell, Tim, I got like a 60% erection over here. You know, if anyone's figured out how to watch these pornos, it's old turgid Ty Montgomery.
Credit where credit's due. I would like to congratulate you on your B minus, or maybe like C plus attempt at an erection. But I would also like to take a little bit of responsibility for the frustration that you felt, maybe the confusion on like, what are we doing here, sort of all at sea feeling that you had. While out fishing for a boner, you felt all at sea. There's a lot of maritime metaphors in this episode. Because this was in German, it baffles me still how these movies are so hard to source in English, because they were made in the 2000s and they're pornography, and yet you're telling me that a sensible English copy does not exist readily available on the internet?
As significantly as being made in the 2000s, they were also made in English.
Yes, importantly, that is also true. I just thought that everything was pretty easy to find online, and I guess that's not true. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank so many fans, listeners to the show who have come out and provided some assistance with tracking these movies down. This is where this one came from. I wouldn't know where to find a German dubbed TV edit of a porno, and I didn't know that was what we were watching, because I downloaded the file and didn't open it until this morning. But there you go.
Here we are. I mean, so long as we are talking about this German edit, TV edit of Emmanuelle, The Art of Love, there were, because we were sort of putting it together. So you got this Thomas Crown Affair type thing where the couple, the non-Emmanuelle couple, steal the painting. Emmanuelle sees them. She seems to think that she takes issue with this behavior, I think. I feel like she challenges them to return the painting, or perhaps...
I think you're right. And I just want to add to that. So that is, I'm pretty sure, Marco and Zoe are that couple.
Zoe and Marco. So Zoe and Marco steal this painting. Emmanuelle pressures them to return it. Along the way, she also befriends them. And along the way, she also starts controlling Zoe sexually. And along the way, she also meets Paolo, who is Marco's brother or friend. And then along the way, these characters also wind up on a boat. And along the way, that guy, Saron, starts using a really cool sort of wind chime SFX that sort of like is the binding agent for all of the boat scenes are like taped together with this wind chime SFX. And also they use this really cool editing feature, like a Looney Tunes style blackout a few times in the movie, where it's like at the end of the scene when we thought they were going to get a foursome after Zoe and Marco get engaged and Emmanuelle and Paolo are on their couch naked after having had sex, and you're like, oh, we're on here. Instead you just get this like love heart that zooms in onto the screen until it blacks out entirely.
It's like a kind of a wipe, mate. Oh, I guess it's not a wipe, is it? But yeah,
I wouldn't know what to call. I think Looney Tunes was the best example. It's like, you know, they go, that circle comes in and the music goes
tunnel kind of thing,
and Porgy Piggle goes, that's all, folks.
I would love it if that happened on these Emmanuelle movies. Except it was some like disgusting guy with a moustache going, that's all, folks.
I love that noise. How talented were the Looney Tunes folks? They were making those a long time ago.
They really were, Guy. They were very good. There's probably like 3 people involved just doing 100 different voices.
Mel Blanc, he was the big one.
So I know a fact about this movie, which may or may not be true, but I'm pretty sure is. I'm like 95% sure is true. I have a fact about this movie, Emmanuelle and the Art of Love. And I want you to try and guess what the fact is. And you've got 10 guesses in a kind of 20 questions style to try and get to it.
Okay.
Your time starts now, and you have infinite time, but you have 10 guesses.
All right, so I don't get a clue or anything to start. I just start talking.
The clue is, it is a fact about this movie we've just seen.
It's too open. Is the fact relating to one of the actors in the movie?
No.
Is the fact relating to one of the members of the production or creative team behind the movie?
Yes.
Is the fact pertaining to the director of the movie?
Yes.
Has the director gone on to achieve some version of success outside of the softcore pornography sphere?
Not to my knowledge.
Is the fact pertaining to something the director had done before the release of this movie?
No.
Huh. Was the director of this movie a New Zealander?
No.
I believe, was the director of this movie a woman?
Yes.
Is that the fact?
Yes, because I'm pretty sure that was 6. That was really good. I'm impressed. Jill Hayworth, I think, is the first female director we have had in the entire franchise.
I think you are right as well.
But I looked her up online and I can't find anything about her. But there are some photos in the Library of Congress of her for some reason. And then I assumed that it was a different Jill Hayworth.
No. One and the same.
I guess she is important as being the first female director in the Emmanuelle franchise.
Stop trying to pigeonhole women. They can be a member of Congress and direct 2000s.
No. Not a member of Congress. Her photo as a director of pornography is kept because of its cultural significance in the Library of Congress.
What, and you're telling me people who work in porn can't become a member of Congress? You are exactly the sort of person I've spent my entire life railing against.
You're doing such a good job of purposefully misunderstanding the exact thing I'm telling you, that you could be a member of Congress, Guy.
And now you're telling me that I'm deliberately misunderstanding something? There's only one person who can mediate this, and they're known for 2 things. Their ability to listen and the fact that they've had a boner for 50 years that is tucked very neatly inside of the collar of their shirt. Please welcome to the room, George Lazenby. Yeah. Ha! Pow! Pow! Watch out, it's me, George Lazenby.
Hey, George, you seen any good movies recently?
I have. I saw Batman Returns at the cinema last
Did you?
night.
At the cinema? Wow. Tell me, did you like it? I haven't seen that movie since I think I was a little kid.
Well, yes, it came out in 92. I remember I heard that Michael Keaton wasn't going to sign back on to be Batman, and I said, well, George Lazenby is around, and Tim Burton, well, he never liked me because Helena Botham Kaddish used to give me the eyes, and Tim didn't trust me. So anyway, I got passed over, and Keaton eventually took the role, and I avoided it at the time, but I regret it because it was one of the great cinema experiences.
I always got the sense that those two were kind of in an open relationship because they lived in separate houses. So I just felt like they had their own things going on.
Well,
they weren't limited by the normal constructs of a quote-unquote normal marriage.
Yes, well, this is what I thought as well, but Tim's a pretty protective son of a gun. Anyway, He knows how to direct a movie in the early 90s. It had Keaton as Batman. It had Michelle Pfeiffer in a defining role as Catwoman, and Danny DeVito as the Penguin, and Christopher Walken as Shrek, some sort of businessman.
Wow, I don't remember Christopher Walken being in it. Is he prominent in the film?
Very.
Does he do a good job?
Fantastic.
Okay. And is that the one where the bat suit has nipples?
Didn't notice the nipples, but
maybe that was the Clooney one actually, which I can't remember which one that was.
The Clooney one was that was Batman and Robin.
Robin? Yeah. Which I think I watched for the podcast that I do.
I listened to that, yes.
Did you enjoy the episode? That means you're a Patreon supporter, which is very gratifying to hear, George Lazenby.
Yes. Well, when you fellas turned to porn, I thought, well, maybe they'll whisper some erotic secrets in the Patreon, and I subscribed, and of course I get access to all of the fantastic back catalogue of content you've put out.
Great stuff. Love that. So, George, normally when you come here, we pitch you a porno.
Yes.
But today, I think we should take a similar approach that the version of the film we saw today had, which was kind of just skirting the sex stuff. Just maybe we do something else today.
Okay. What are you thinking?
Well, I'd like to ask your opinion on an art matter. If you go to an art gallery and you see a frame of moderate size that has been painted one solid colour, albeit with a few distinguishing strokes, so it is visible that someone did it rather than some sort of mechanical process like a printer.
Yes.
Do you think that it should be qualified to take up a position on the wall in place of, say, something else?
My understanding of those paintings is always that the artist's original intention has not been realized. That usually they've painted something so entirely sexual, erotic, and oftentimes despicable beneath the veneer of a block color that they've had to paper over the innermost turmoil and sexual anguish of their mind's eye with some loud green or out there purple. But if you chip beneath the surface, you'll see the actualization of sexual depravity.
Wow. And do you think that the threat of that image being in the room but not visible justifies the painting being on the wall?
Absolutely.
Well, it's been great to have you here, George. Thank you so much for stopping by. I've got to start asking you about more shit than just pornos, because clearly you're a learned and fascinating man. With a lot of
I'm very intelligent, but you must remember the reason I come in every week is I'm looking for a pornographic film that can relieve me from
Take the week off, George.
Agony.
We're
of
on
this
glide
erection.
time.
Okay. Bye.
Good day. He's a good guy.
He's all right.
George Lazenby.
He seems a bit sus, but I think his heart's in the right place.
I'm loath to wrap up, but I do want to. The bit that I'm loath about is I feel like we really haven't talked about the film very much, which I feel bad about.
I think we got into the film a bit.
There's a lot to talk about, though.
few things I want to say. Every time a character, when they were on the boat, whenever they said Marco, I just wanted someone to say Polo.
And there was a guy called Paolo in here, so they really could have set that up.
I know. What else have I got here? The last song, we're talking soundtrack, the last song, that sort of soft 2000s rock that served as the crescendo for the makeup sex at the end.
What the fuck was that? That came out of nowhere and matched none of the other music. It was like someone just slapped it on.
Yeah, but it still placed me in the year 2000. It was a total departure from every genre choice they'd made so far, but I was like, wow, this movie really knows where it is in time.
That's true. Can I ask you a question about this movie?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the scene where the woman masturbated fully clothed against a wall and a whole lot of art patrons just kind of watched?
Deeply.
Very good. I'm rating the German TV edit of Emmanuelle and the Art of Love 2.5 out of 5.
I'm rating
No, that's too fence city. It's 3.
I'm rating it R13 out of a possible R18.
I like that rating system. All right, folks, we'll catch you in the next exciting episode of The Worst Idea of All Time, where we will be watching another porno. Will it be in English? Probably not. Will it have a duration to last the full 90 minutes? If I have anything to do with it, yes, it will.
Will Guy Montgomery finally achieve a full-blown erection? Tune in next time to find out.
Time will tell. Goodbye.